Well guys, how is it going? Today I'm going to be commenting some of the new topics I learned in week 3 of learning how to learn. Today I'm going to be talking about how to avoid procrastination, and the reason behind trying to avoid procrastination is mainly to be able to develop a spaced repetition throughout all of your studies, because if you want to learn a topic deeply, you need to do it repeatedly, and you need to avoid procrastination for you to be able to have that kind of discipline of putting the time where it's needed. Introducing a bit of what does the term procrastination means. You may have experienced it already. Everyone experiences at some time. Is when you have something to do and you put it off because you convince yourself that you can do it later, that it's not a big deal. But what you are mainly doing is convincing yourself with some excuses, saying that it is not necessary for you to do it, that task on that moment, and you don't think that this have a negative effect on you in the moment, but in the long term it does, because you are probably, instead of doing that task that will benefit you in the long run, because probably, I don't know, you may be skipping some studying, but you're not replacing that studying for another, I don't know, for doing exercise or for studying for another subject. What you're mainly doing probably is changing it for a task or an activity that gives you more pleasure, that activates the dopamine in your hippocampus, so it is not very good. Well, one of the ways to avoid procrastination is to make those tasks that you usually put off for a later moment or later time, to make a habit of doing them at a certain time or at a certain moment of the day, because if you need to use willpower every time you have something to do, then it will be impossible for you to make a good distribution of that willpower across all your tasks in the day. So if you make them a habit, what will happen is that in the long run, probably after 1 month of developing those habits, those tasks will come natural, and you will not need to convince yourself that those tasks are worth your time and that you should be doing that in the moment, instead of activating your zombies like Barbara does, which trigger your dopamine in your brain. About those habits, we need to know what composes this habit. A habit is made up of 4 instances, as we can call them, and the first one is the cue, which in fact is something your brain sees or perceives that activates a response to that perception. It could be, for example, listening or seeing your phone vibrate, and what maybe your brain immediately does is send a signal to your body to, oh, you have to go and watch who sent you a message, or I don't know, check who liked your post on Instagram and all that stuff. Then the second part of the habit is called the routine, which is the response to that cue. you may be, if you are developing a good habit of not checking the phone while studying, what you may have to do is when you listen to that cue of a message, what you now have to do is, well, I keep on with what I'm doing in the moment and not get distracted by that message. Then the third item of the habit is the reward, is what your brain predicts that will happen if you commit to that task you're trying to develop. For instance, as I mentioned earlier, when you see that someone likes your post, the reward is probably a sense of gratification of someone who you like, that has liked your picture. And then the fourth is the belief, is what makes you believe that that habit is inside of you. Because you may possibly say, well, it is impossible for me to study more than 2 hours a day. Well, that is like that because you believe you can't. But once you start believing on a system of changing that habit and making a good system of a reaction of a cue and giving yourself rewards for those cues, and you start believing in your own developed system, you may start benefiting from that. Well,